So for respiratory adaptions, so during exercise, our ventilation will increase as we need to inhale more oxygen so that it could be delivered to the muscles and used for important sporting contractions like Mark Noble going to jogging around the pitch, going back into his formation. We then also need to exhale this air to get rid of carbon dioxide and also make room for more oxygen. Over time, this will mean that we have a lowered resting heart rate because our heart doesn't need to work as hard because we're inhaling enough oxygen to keep a constant refuel going. The constant increased ventilation when we exercise will also mean that we have an increased lung capacity as there are more alveoli and capillaries due to capillarization, which can take oxygen away quicker. Tidal volume will increase as we can inhale and exhale more, and this may be because increased ventilation will work the respiratory muscles, which means they can exaggerate contractions and allow for the lungs to take in larger amounts of air when the muscles deflate quicker. The slide shows the difference between pre and post long-term training. The graph again. The difference is how a trained athlete will be able to use a lower amount of VO2 because they have better cardiovascular adaptations, and with this they can also keep going for longer with a stable VO2. Important in sport so it can keep performing at a better standard when everyone else is fatiguing. This may be seen in extra time at a football match. There will be players who have a more trained system and can last longer, so that will be something that Noble would really be looking to be better at than others. Breathing rate over a long period of training will become lower at rest because your muscles can become more efficient with how they use oxygen, so that less goes to waste and your heart doesn't need to keep working hard and you don't need to keep quickly inhaling air for oxygen taken to the muscles. Respiratory muscles can go through hypertrophy over time as they need to keep contracting whenever we inhale or exhale, and when we do that more vigorously during exercise, this happens faster. As a result of this, muscles getting bigger, they can create a more exaggerated ventilation and can increase the speed in which you inhale and exhale, which becomes important if your muscles are becoming starved of oxygen. With these muscles working over time, they can reduce their OBLA onset blood lactate accumulation and become more immune to lactic acid being built up, meaning they can work for longer and you can keep inhaling and exhaling normally. The muscles can also become more efficient and less wasteful with their energy when they contract. Lung volumes can also adapt to long-term training with slight increases in your total lung capacity, vital capacity, and residual volume, as the constant large amount of air that is being inhaled will mean that your lungs can handle slightly more oxygen with extra alveoli, and because of this, there may become a slightly larger amount of air that will sit in your lungs when you exhale. With this extra alveoli and due to capillarization, when training long-term, gaseous exchange can happen more rapidly and frequently because the increased numbers mean that more diffusion between the two can take place with faster diffusion rates. This is hugely important in getting oxygen to the muscles and getting rid of CO2. Tidal volume is increased when exercising maximally, as the recovery period means that you need to inhale quickly because you have starved your muscles of oxygen for a while and need to refuel them with some more oxygen so that you do not collapse. O2 deficit will be increased as you are able to get more oxygen with extra capillaries and alveoli, and a larger lung capacity makes it so more oxygen can be taken in. EPOT will be lowered with long-term training, as this will be seen, for example, during a long-distance run. When you start exercising, the recovery, when you're nearing the end of your exercise, the recovery will become quicker as your muscles are able to cope with less oxygen being inhaled, as they are more efficient with contractions and not much goes to waste. Aerobic training can also decrease the chances of getting chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, as it will increase how well your respiratory system is, and this disease is when you struggle to breathe due to narrow airways, and exercising aerobically will mean that those airways are constantly getting inflated and opened with air rushing through, so there is less chance of them becoming too narrow. So the respiratory system adaptations. There won't be too many respiratory benefits of training anaerobically, as respiratory requires the constant inhalation or exhalation of oxygen. However, taking part in sprint interval training, you may see that breathing rate may decrease over time, as the recovery period after the sprint requires you to take in a lot of oxygen, and your breathing rate will increase over a short amount of time. But as your body adapts to being able to be more efficient with the oxygen, then your breathing rate will decrease because you don't need as much. And you can use less oxygen. So if you had trained over a long period and then you ran a 100-meter race at the end when you needed to recover, your breathing rate is lower than it would be if you didn't train, because your body can work with less oxygen. And this may also mean that ventilation may slightly decrease over a long time, as you don't need to inhale as much oxygen as you would if you didn't train. This would also mean that diffusion rates will have to be faster and bigger, as you aren't breathing as much, exhaling as much, and you need to get rid of CO2 that's still being created by the muscles. So neuromuscular system, neuromuscular adaptions. Slow oxidative fibers are one that will help reduce fatigue due to how taking part in aerobic activities will cause the fibers to work and therefore create hypertrophy of the motor units. This enlargement can be up to 22%. This is important, as this means that more motor units are available to take turn to help contractions, which means other units have time to recover, and this can help reduce fatigue. The effectiveness of mitochondria is increased during performance, as it can offer quick energy to the muscles so that they can keep contracted effectively in sports, such as kicking a noble kicking the football. The mitochondria can hold more energy and be quicker for the contraction, so it increases reaction time. Fast glycolytic fibers are important when working anaerobically in sports such as golf, when you tee off or hitting a baseball with a bat. Hyperplasia. Okay, wait. So these fast glycolytic fibers are important because they're quick movements, quick and powerful movements. And hyperplasia is when you can increase the number of fibers there are in the muscle, and this can help with force generation. You get a bigger force coming outcome, so you can hit it further maybe. Force generation is important in sports such as boxing or golf, and it can be increased due to hyperplasia of fast glycolytic fibers, and this means that you can apply a bigger force than usual because more fibers can contract at once, so you could potentially hit the golf ball or baseball further. Males increase their muscle mass quicker than women due to the higher testosterone levels, which can help form muscle. Fast oxidative fibers grow mostly when you're doing endurance training, like slow oxidative fibers, and this is because they need to make fast reactions in endurance sports such as striker and football, reacting quickly by extending their leg to tap in a goal, or Mark Noble diving in quickly to make a last ditch tackle. Tendon strength is an important long-term adaptation, as it means that you are able to stretch further without snapping the tendon and getting an injury that will stop you from participating. Having strong tendons will also mean that ligaments are also more sturdy, which is important in stopping bones from detaching. This is important for tennis players when they stretch for a shot and they twist their body to hit the ball back across the court. Usually this would cause strain on their knees, but if they have a stronger tendons, they are less likely to strain or pull tendons, which will be uncomfortable for them to perform with, or ultimately they won't be able to perform at all. And the adaptation of proprioceptors can prove vital in many sports, such as as long-term training can make them more sensitive, more responsive to stimuli, such as a goalkeeper reacting to, say, a penalty. Muscle spindles in the core of the muscle become more responsive to movement and can be much quicker in sending info to the medulla oblongata to get info back to make a successful contraction. Neural pathways can be bettered with long-term training, which can also help reaction time, which can be important when blocking a punch in boxing. Motor units can become more disciplined and more coordinated to make for a better muscle contraction, so that you're ultimately more successful when doing your sport. So energy systems. So enzymes are the first adaptation of energy systems in response to long-term training. Enzymes can become more responsive over time, which means that they can break down substances quicker, which is important in energy systems such as the lactic acid or during anaerobic glycolysis. The benefits of enzymes reacting quicker is that substances can be broken down quicker and ATP can be created, meaning muscles get energy for contractions quicker. Fuel sources can also be increased due to supplementation. When you train, some athletes will take additional creatine supplements before they train, so they can have more phosphocreatine that is needed to help synthesize ATP. This allows for more energy during training to make more contractions so that muscles can tear and rebuild bigger. Important in building muscle mass for sports such as rugby or boxing, where you need strength and power to be exerted. In boxing, this extra phosphocreatine will allow for the athlete to make more contractions when they extend their arm to punch without fatiguing. When the boxer runs out of these energy stores, they'll be forced to use the lactic acid system to get the energy. This is effective in the sense that it can produce ATP. However, the byproduct of lactic acid becomes an inhibitor to the enzymes in the energy system, and energy production therefore becomes slowed. However, long-term training can help you become more immune to lactic acid with lactic acid buffering, which will reduce the acidity of the blood and in the muscle cells to delay your fatigue. You can also increase your onset of blood lactate accumulation, or OBLA, again with long-term training, as our body adapts to lactic acid and can keep performing despite the build-up. This is what the graph shows. It shows the amount of lactate in the blood and the impact it has on us. So your OBLA starts when the lactate accumulates to 4 millimoles, and you can see that heart rate also increases when the amount of lactic acid reaches 4 millimoles to get the blood pumped around quicker and try and get rid of them byproducts in the blood. A more trained athlete will be able to steady the accumulation of lactic acid when it reaches 4 millimoles so that they can form longer, as the red arrow shows. Our body can also be trained to use our fats as a fuel source as we glycogen spare during exercise. This is important when we train, as glycogen is important in resynthesizing ATP. However, we can use fats and triglycerides to be broken down and create ATP, and this allows for us to use our glycogen stores later on instead of us hitting the wall. This would be seen in marathon running, where you use fats at first to glycogen spare, and then later on you'll be able to use all your available glycogen stores. If you didn't glycogen spare, then you use all of your available glycogen too early, and you'll end up hitting the wall when you're a few miles off the end of the marathon, depending on how fit, of course, you are. So last one, skeletal adaptions. And bone density is a long-term adaptation related to the body skeletally, and this is because of the increase in calcium stores, which can be used to build up bones and make them stronger. This increase in calcium stores also means that you are less likely to suffer from osteoporosis and have brittle bones. This would be dangerous in contact sports like football, like Mark Noble, as with enough force you're more susceptible to breaking bones, which would mean for a while out injured, which would be dreadful for Noble if he goes in for a tackle and somebody just has more force on his leg on a wrong angle that could put him out for a whole season, which wouldn't be great at all. And we can also have thicker cartilage due to long-term training, which means that we can increase our range of movement as synovial fluid is enhanced, allowing for more fluid free-flowing movements. Okay, and it also means that you're less likely to suffer from arthritis. An increase in ligament strength due to long-term training can also help performance and also help our range of movement again, as ligament strength will increase flexibility. This would only mean that you become less likely to be injured. You won't snap or strain any ligament stretching for like a tackle again, going and stretching for the ball. And this is why for performers rotating joints and stretching constantly, you have good range of movement boosted by cartilage and ligament enhancement. Done.